which means that it is finally shorts season. And I think they were more popular last summer, I want to say, but like correct me if I'm wrong. Those cute little like bloomer shorts, to die for. And it's finally shorts weather, and I don't have a pair of one of those. So today I'm going to bring you guys along with me to make a pair of these like cute little bloomer style shorts, and hopefully this is kind of like a one-day project. So I'm going to bring you guys along with me and do like a little tutorial, I guess. Let's go over material of what we're going to need for this. We're going to need fabric, obviously, thread, elastic thread, obviously your sewing machine, and like any other basic sewing tools. Like if you sew, you'll have all these little things, I don't know, like scissors. And for mine today, I'm going to be basing mine off a pant pattern that I know fits me. If you have made a pair of pants in the past and you have a pattern that you know fits really well, use that for this. If you do not, what you can do is take a pair of pants that you own that fit you really well and copy them onto pattern paper. There's a video right here showing you kind of how you can do this by this other creator. And when you have that base pattern of pants or shorts, if you already have them as shorts, use that. I just have them as pants. It doesn't really matter. Then we're going to use that pattern piece to make our shorts off of, to manipulate the pattern. So you're also going to need some paper as well to kind of do this pattern manipulation stuff. First step is I'm going to take you guys along with me to go to the thrift store to try to thrift some fabric. And this isn't going to be a huge project, so you won't need like a lot of fabric, and I'm moving soon, so I'm going to try to find not an entire like bed sheet. I'm going to try to find something like smaller to make this out of. So let's head to Value Village, possibly other thrift stores if we can't find anything, and let's get started. Here we are at Value Village, and I am hunting for fabric in the bedding aisles. That's kind of like usually my go-to. This one I loved, but it was just too stiff and there was too much of it that I just like wouldn't use it. This one as well had like kind of some awkward pilling on it, and this one I was going to go with, but like I don't know, it just like wasn't. Like this guy was so beautiful but way too stiff, and I ended up finding this beautiful green 100% cotton plaid, and that ran me about $8. So there was like a perfect amount of fabric to make this pair of shorts, and I didn't realize it in the store, but when I opened it up, there's actually these really cute little like goose decals on it that are like embroidered on that I managed to save. So I'm going to use those little goose for like a future project or something. But we're going to start with our pattern paper. And we need our pattern pieces. These are my pattern blocks. They're in a size 10. So if you're a size 10, you can honestly just like do exactly what I'm doing. If not, you can measure yourself and figure out what you need. I'm gonna be ignoring the darts on this because we're using elastic thread anyway, so like it doesn't really matter. So I'm just gonna trace my pattern blocks onto my pattern paper, and I'm kind of just like positioning them like slightly on it. Like I don't need to trace the whole thing. I'm gonna turn them into shorts, so I kind of just like cut off the bottom and like traced it out. And I'm just gonna take my ruler and make a grain line as well and just label this piece. This one is the front, so I'm just gonna label front on it so that way it's very obvious. And we're gonna repeat the exact same thing on the back side, but writing back on it instead. Now I'm just gonna go through and true my lines, which just means to kind of like blend the lines into each other. Because mine originally had darts in it, there's these like weird bumps at the top, so I'm kind of just like flattening those out. So now we need to do a test to see how the fabric is going to react with the shirring. So I'm going to use this elastic thread here, which I got from Walmart, and I'm going to wind it into my bobbin. To do this, you just thread it through one of the holes like how you would a regular bobbin, and then holding it just loosely in your hand, just wind the bobbin by hand, not pulling on it, but not doing it like too loosely, just like normal, average, just wind up the bobbin. And when you're done, just trim the thread. Alright, so we're gonna kick out the old bobbin with regular thread and put in our elastic thread. You're gonna put it in exactly how you put in a regular bobbin. You're gonna thread it just as normal. We do, however, need to change the machine's settings, so we're going to change our stitch length to a 4, or the highest on your machine, and I'm going to change my tension to an 8. This is what works for me. Your machine might be different. I would just do some testing to see how you get the look you want. So when you are shirring, you can backstitch, so I do that, and then I'm just going to shirr for like maybe 6 inches. I'm doing this so I can measure how much my fabric is changing, like see how much it's shrinking with the shirring. So that way when I go to alter my pattern, I can make it wide enough so that way when it shrinks back down, we get like the cute little ruched effect that we're looking for. I'm going to pull my fabric flat, and using a ruler, I'm just going to mark 3 inches. And then when I take my ruler away and let it scrunch up, I'm going to remeasure it and see that it is now 2 inches. This means that my fabric is shrinking due to the shirring at 1.5 the times. This will all make more sense when we go to actually manipulate the pattern. Before we get ahead of ourselves, I'm just going to kind of flatten out this curve there. I just hate how like sharp and pointed it was, so I just got rid of that. And from there, we are going to measure the width of the back and front panels. My back panel ended up being 12 inches wide and my front panel was 11 inches wide. Taking those measurements, I am going to divide up each panel into 8 evenly spaced sections. So I'm just going to do 8 straight lines across. I believe mine were about 1.5 inches apart, give or take, like something like that. It doesn't need to be perfect. And I'm going to do this on both panels. And after that, I'm just going to number them and also add a F or B, depending if I'm talking about the front panel or the back panel. So that way I just like do not get them like mistaken later when they're all cut up. And now we're just going to cut out each piece. And before I divide them up into their parts, I'm going to take the front panel and kind of just like put the crotch spot where my crotch is. So that way I can figure out how long I want the shorts to be. So I'm just kind of folding them at that spot so that way I can trim it off. And I just transferred the numbers above the line so that way I don't get them confused. And I'm going to repeat the exact same thing on the back, making sure that they're lined up, and so that way they'll be the same size on the front and back. And I'm going to cut off the excess. And now that that is done, we can finally divide up our panels. So I'm going to cut them all into their little pieces. You can do this with a pair of scissors or you can use a rotary cutter. I just got mine and I've been obsessed with it, so I'm going to be using that. And I'm going to set those off to the side and do the exact same thing on the back panel. I realized I didn't really explain the math very well, which is important if you're not the same size as me, as you will need to do the math yourself in your own way. Or maybe your fabric or elastic thread reacts differently. So our back panel was 12 inches wide and our front panel was 11 inches wide. We are going to be multiplying both of those measurements by 1.5. We're doing that because the shirring makes the fabric 1.5 times smaller than it is. So by multiplying it by 1.5, I can make sure that the shorts will fit me when I put them on, you know? Like, it'll give that cute little scrunched effect that we're looking for. Your measurement might be different. I figured out that measurement by doing a test strip of shirring, as you saw earlier, and then I measured 3 inches when it was flat, let it scrunch up and re-measured it, which got me 2 inches, and then I divided the 3 inches by 2 inches, which gives me 1.5. So it's getting smaller by 1.5 times. So that is why we're using 1.5 as a measurement here. So this means that my back panel then needs to be 18 inches wide, which is 12 times 1.5, and our front panel needs to be 16.5 inches wide, which is the 11 inches times 1.5. I hope that makes sense, and if it doesn't, you will probably be fine just measuring your width by 1.5. Like, if you can't figure it out, 1.5 should be good enough. Like, I'm just using 100% cotton with regular cheap elastic thread, and 1.5 is a good measurement to do that with. So if you can't figure it out, just do 1.5. If you can't figure it out, do whatever measurement that is. I bet you it's close to 1.5 though. Anyways, back to pattern drafting. So I measure out 18 inches wide for the back, and I just added 2 little guidelines on either side so that way I know where the stop and start is very clearly. Now we must grab our tape and put this puzzle back together. So the first piece labeled with the number 1 obviously will go on the far left, and our number 8 piece will go on the far right. So I'm just going to start with putting those pieces down. Once that is done, we can take all the other pieces and just evenly distribute them in order between the other two pieces and tape them down. And we're going to follow the exact same steps on the front side. Instead, it is 16 inches wide. And I believe I actually only had 7 pieces for this one because it is like a little smaller than the back panel. So I distribute those evenly between the 16 inches. And that is both the front and the back all taped down. Our next step is to just kind of like connect the dots in between them. As you can see, this line is curvy, so it's not going to connect like perfect, so we kind of have to infer a little bit. So use a curved ruler of any type, or just like a curved object if you don't have one, and kind of just like infer a little bit. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect, just kind of like fix it up and connect the dots in the way that makes the most sense. And we're also going to connect the dots at the top and bottom. And there we have it all connected. Our final step for these pattern pieces is adding our seam allowance. So at the top and bottom of both panels, I'm going to add an inch. That's because I'm going to be using the turn and turn method to hem and create like a little space for the tie at the top. So we're going to be turning 1/2 inch and then another 1/2 inch. So that's why we need to add an inch to the bottom and top. All the rest of the seam allowance is going to be just 1/2 inch. And once your seam allowances are added to both the front and the back, you can just cut out the pieces. And here we have it. This is the front panel and this is the back. And now we're going to cut it out. So I'm going to lay my fabric out nice and flat, and I'm going to pin my pattern pieces in place and just cut them out. Do this on the front as well, and you will be left with 4 pieces. Obviously, there will be 2 back panel pieces and 2 front panel pieces, and we are going to move on to finishing the edges. On all of the pieces, I'm going to finish the edge of the long side there, as well as the little short side there too, and this curved part. I own a serger, so I'm going to be using my serger for this step. If you don't, you can just use a zigzag stitch along the edge. This just prevents any fraying. And you're going to do this to each piece individually. As you can see here, I have all those sides I pointed out nice and serged. That way they will not fray later. So I'm going to do that 3 more times. Ta-da! And now it's time to get sewing. So this is a back panel here. I'm laying it on the ground right side up, and I'm putting a front panel on top of it right side down, so that way the right sides are together, and I'm going to be pinning along the long side of my pattern. Should look like this, and do that for both pieces. From there, we're going to use our machine settings on normal. I usually have my tension at 4, and I use a stitch length of about 2.5, and just a regular bobbin. We're not using the elastic thread just yet. And reminder that we're using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So do this at a 1/2 inch. So there's the seam there. I just opened it up, and I'm actually going to iron it now. And we repeat that on both sides. So now, using my favorite magic marker, it is basically a friction erasable marker, or pen, I guess. So when you use it, you can just like iron it away, so it's like perfect. So we're going to be using that to make some markings. Before we do any shirring, I am going to be ironing the hemline. This is going to make our lives so much easier later. So to do this, to make it easier myself, I'm just measuring an inch on the wrong side of my fabric, so that way I can just like fold it up to an inch and fold it again. So as you see here, I'm going to just fold it up to that inch there. I'm going to press that with lots of steam, get it to stay. Do that for the entire length of it, and then fold it up 1 more time. So you're folding it up 1/2 inch and folding it up 1/2 inch after that. Now we're going to take our magic marker again, and we're going to make some guidelines for the shirring. The first shirring line, I'm putting 1.5 inches above the hem. And then from there, I'm going to do 1/4 inch above that line. And then 1 inch above that line, and 1/4 inch above that line, and so on and so forth until I have about 1.5 inches from the top. If you are not working with a pattern like mine, do these guidelines throughout the entire length of it. I just did it like a little bit there because mine is plaid, so I just like don't need the guidelines because I can use the plaid as guidelines. Putting our machine back on our shirring settings. Then we are just going to shirr along all these lines and going right across that middle seam that was there. And just a reminder that we're doing this with the right side up because the bobbin is on the underneath, which means it will be adding the elastic thread to the underneath, which is the wrong side. And for now, I'm going to leave all my threads pretty long, like the elastic thread, even though we are backstitching. I just want to make sure that nothing comes undone, so I'm going to leave them long until I sew the legs together. Those are our first 2 lines of shirring, and it turned out exactly like how I planned. So I did a few more lines, and you're kind of like getting the vision here. And that is 1 leg fully done and shirred, which I know it looks like really tiny, but we're just going to trust the process with that. So now we just need to copy this on to the other side. And now, once you have both legs shirred, I know my spirit looks broken, but that is the hard part done. And now it's fun. We're in the finale here of finishing this short. Let's go. I'm just gonna give them a quick iron to remove all those like little lines there, and it kind of just like makes the shirring, I don't know, kind of look cute. I just give it a quick press, get rid of my lines and whatnot. So now that each leg is shirred, we are going to need to basically close each leg individually, like conjoin at the crotch there. So I'm going to take 1 piece, this is right side up, and I'm going to just conjoin those 2 like crotch pieces. They should be like the shortest piece there, and I'm just gonna pin that together. And we're just gonna repeat that on the other side as well. Here's a bit of a close-up there, and we're just going to be sewing along that, and it's just going to close the leg so that way we have 2 separate legs to then sew together. So we're done with the shirring, so we can switch back to our regular bobbin, regular machine settings, and let's sew those closed. And we are sewing this seam together at 1/2 inch. And I was really concerned about my like elastic threads coming loose, so I ended up back stitching when I would sew over them, just that way they were like super secure, and then because I sewed over those, I can now trim them. We did as well iron up our hem, so make sure as you're sewing these together to like unfold your hem. And once you're done the other leg, you can flip that hem back up, and we are just going to sew along it before we actually stitch the legs together. I feel like this is just like easier to hem them before we do that, less like bulk to work with. So I'm just gonna have my presser foot right up against the edge of that folded hem there, and I'm gonna sew all the way around it. Repeat that on the other side, and then we have 2 legs that are hemmed and ready to get sewn together. If you have never made pants before, listen very closely, this might be a little confusing. To sew the legs together, we're going to take 1 leg and put it right side out, so that way you have 1 leg that is right side out and 1 leg that is wrong side out. So this guy is the one with the wrong side out, and this one has the right side out. I'm going to take the one that is right side out, and I'm going to place it inside the one that is wrong side out. This means that inside the right sides are touching, and I'm going to be connecting it all along that like U shape, which is going to be like where the crotch is. So I'm going to pin those together, and I'm trying to kind of match my seams up and match where my shirring lines are, and they should match up if you did your measurements right on each leg. If not, like, it's no big deal. Like, I don't think mine were perfect, but so I'm just gonna pin all along there. And once that is done, you can see the U shape very clearly, and we're just going to be sewing all around that, and I'm going to be kind of back stitching over each like shirring line as I do it, just to make sure that they're like super in there so they don't come loose. And once our legs are sewn together, I'm just gonna go through and trim all my threads now that I feel that they're nice and secured. So our shorts are sewn together, and we are in the home stretch here. I'm just insiding them out, or right siding them out, I guess, and I'm gonna do a little try on, make sure that everything is going to plan, which as you can see it obviously is. They are so stinking cute, and we are in the home stretch here. We're almost finished.
Oh my god, I know we're not done yet, but I am obsessed, like obsessed. This is actually turning out, which I'm so glad, because I was a little worried that I was like, what if I film this whole tutorial and they don't even look cute? But they look cute. Oh my goodness. Oh Oh my goodness, that looks exactly like how I wanted.
But don't get excited, we're not done yet. We got like literally like 2 more steps to do. So we need to finish this top there. So I'm just going to be kind of like marking where the front is so that way I don't forget it later. And we're going to be doing the exact same thing we did for the bottom hem, which we're just going to be turning it and turning it again about 1/2 inch each time. And we're going to sew along the length of that. And that is our little tie casing all finished. I have my little marking there so I remember where the front is, and that's where we're gonna put the little tie. So for mine, I decided to do a like hand stitched buttonhole, which honestly didn't really turn out. I'm gonna go back and fix it one day when I have embroidery thread. I just only had regular thread. So I kind of cut like a little buttonhole shape just on like the top layer of the fabric there. And then using my string, I just kind of went over it and did a bunch of like little loops around it till I felt it was secure. Again, it doesn't look great. I'm gonna go back when I have embroidery thread and go over it so it's like super stable. And to make the tie, we're going to be taking a strip that I think I made it about 1 inch wide, give or take inch and a bit, whatever, it doesn't super matter. I'm just gonna make sure that it's long enough that I can tie a bow with it. And I'm going to be sewing it in half. I'm going to put the folded edge right up against the left side of my presser foot. So that way we are doing like a 1/4 inch strip. And I'm just gonna sew all the way along it. Which leaves us with this long strip of fabric here. And I'm just gonna go along it and trim that edge down. I trimmed it down to like maybe there was like 1/8 of an inch left. That way it's just like super easy to turn inside out. And now we're left with this long strip here. And probably for the worst part is we need to turn it inside out now. So I am going to be using this little loop turner I got. And my piece was like just short enough that I was able to use this, but I really had to like force it on there, but we made it work. It's whatever. So yeah, I just put the whole thing on the loop turner, and then I kind of like grabbed at the end of it with a little hook on the loop turner. You can do this with like a safety pin as well if you don't have a loop turner, but like you can figure a way out. And yeah, I just worked at it until I finally got it to kind of like click and start to come through, and then I was able to inside out the whole thing super easily. And our final step, we are going to take a safety pin and put that through one side of our strip here. And we're just going to thread that through that little hole that we made at the top of our shorts and thread it all the way around it. And now we can pull those tight, and you will see that it has turned out exactly as we hoped. How cute is it? Oh my goodness. I am literally so obsessed. I cannot believe how wonderful these look. And now that I have a pattern for it, I'm gonna make so many more, and I'm gonna make matching top for them. Oh my god, I'm literally obsessed. I'm gonna get ready and finish my hair, finish getting ready, and we're gonna see how they look all nice and styled. Curls are done. I'm wearing this cute little pale pink shirt with it and this necklace. And here is the final fit. These new boots that I just got. Like I literally just got these vintage shopping like the other day. Thank you guys so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. I'm going to be making similar content in the future. I actually plan on making a top to match these bottoms. So if you want to see that, hit subscribe down there and like the video as well if you liked it. And if you guys made the bloomers, please post them on either TikTok or Instagram and tag me. My @ on both of them is Rannmaur, RANNMAUR, and I would love to see them if you guys recreate these. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.